meeting. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, the first on our agenda tonight is a sign permit. It's sign design, it's Off the Wall Kids, 160 North Main Street. Is there anybody here? If you could just please tell us about this. Give us your name and address, please.
Should be a photo sheet in the back.
Good evening. My name's Christine Ripley. We represent, we're with Sign Design in Brockton, Massachusetts. We started working with Off the Wall Kids to pull a permit for their building sign as well as the vinyl on the pylon. So what we did was, what the client approved was an aluminum pan sign because there's already existing goosenecks, so it's not internally illuminated, it's externally. It's to code as far as size on the building, so. He approved it to submit to the town, and then the landlord gave him 2 spots on the pylon to use for vinyl.
Oh, okay. So you're just doing the sign, you're not the owner of the...
No, we're just doing the sign.
Okay.
Yep.
There is some sort of a sign out there.
I think
Out there now,
he put
right?
up a temporary banner because he was open, so we wanted some kind of branding,
Oh, okay,
I believe, so that people knew where he was.
all right.
Any chance the owner, or who's that, the commissioner, Ralph? Who's Ralph Ferrigno?
He's the owner of Sign Design.
Oh, he's not related to Lou Ferrigno, the bodybuilder, by any chance?
I do not believe so. I'll check, though.
He's a cool guy.
Stephen, do you have anything to say about this? Does it meets all the requirements?
It does, Mr. Chair, and it looks like, as I'm recalling, there were three colors in the sign, is that right?
Yes.
And it does say in the bylaws that not more than 3 shall be allowed.
All right.
The illumination has been addressed, the size has been addressed.
All right.
It is compliant.
Mr. Chair, I do, just for the board's information, I do believe that plaza, when it was reconfigured and stuff, they came in for all their signage permits for the pylon when they redid the pylon, and it's all pre-permitted on certain sizes and stuff, so that's just information for everybody.
Any other questions from any other board members?
Well, in my opinion, I think this business is a perfect fit for Carver. And I know you're not the owner, but I really hope they succeed. I think it's perfect for town.
We'll let him know.
Kevin, do you have anything to add?
No? Want to make a motion? Do you accept that? The permit, sorry, you mentioned that the permit has already been paid for the,
They'll
what we
need,
call the marquee, no, it's not, we don't call that a marquee anymore, right?
no, it's
All right, so they just need to pay for the permit, right?
no, they need to, I'll make the motion for you. I'll make a motion to approve this, the sign for Off the Wall Kids with the following conditions: a building permit, because everything else is existing.
All right, and I'll second that.
So we have a motion and second to approve. Those in favor? Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That's the first. All right, next we have an approval not required plan. It's for Helen Casoli, Snappet Street. It's a receipt of plans. It's map 35, lot 4. So I suppose, good evening. I suppose if it's a simple plan, generally, sometimes we just have we just look at it the first time, but if you're here tonight to explain this to us and it's a simple thing, we could even approve this.
Well, whatever the pleasure is, I'm Bill Madden from GAF Engineering, here on behalf of Helen Casoli. She's asked us to present the Form A plan for the division of land that she owns off of Nemasket Trail and Snappet Street in Carver. What she's intending to do, or what we're intending to do, is create a couple of lots, 2 lots. One would be off of Snappet Street. It has suitable, the required requisite area and frontage. A second lot would be created to provide the lot for an existing house that was constructed off of Nemasket Trails at some time in the 90s. So what we did is we created a conforming lot with the frontage off of Snappet Street as well, and wrapped it back around to the existing structure. The access for the house on this house would come from High Street. Helen Casoli and her husband John, under Jennifer May Cranberry Company, they purchased this lot. I guess it's lot, I can't really see it from here, 1B, I guess. And they purchased that lot together with an access easement to gain access to the property for a previous sand and gravel operation that was in advance of the Cranberry Bog construction that they did. And the final lot would be the remaining land, which is proposed to be conveyed to a cranberry grower in town. We've also created the adequate frontage that has adequate frontage and area off of Hard Hill Road. So all those existing ways have suitable width, grade, and construction for the intended uses and what have you. So it's relatively straightforward, with the exception of perhaps the shape of the lot associated with the existing house.
Stephen, have you had a chance to look at this plan? I mean,
I haven't, Mr. Chair. Typically, we receive these at one meeting, and then we'll approve them at the subsequent meeting. So I do regret I have nothing to contribute to this conversation at this time.
are there any questions by any of the planning board members?
I do have a question, but it's probably just, so I just need to understand, there's lot 4FA, that's the little triangle if you were to look at it at the middle, but then there's lot 4FA that's at the lower side to the second one in next to 4FB. So what's,
It's a duplicate note because it's a portion of the same lot. If you follow that little 40-foot way, I'm sorry, the 40-foot strip of land up and around, it loops back to where the house is. So it's just a duplicate note indicating that that lot is one and the same. So we start down here on Snappet. It has, you see right here where the throat is, it continues up here like this, wraps back around, and this is just a note that identifies that this portion and this portion are both of lot 4FA.
so that's all one
One lot,
lot?
yes.
Connected by about 40 feet wide?
Yes.
Around everything? Okay.
And the top triangle you said is an existing house?
Correct.
And so what's in the lower lot FA right
It's
now?
vacant.
And
so-
is there a use for that land? You had said one part was gonna be
Well, I
conveyed to a
think-
cranberry grower? Which
Well,
part was that?
the remaining 35 acres would be conveyed to the cranberry grower. I think under local zoning, only one principal structure is allowed on a lot, so it would not be really suitable for building down here on Snappet, due to the existence of the existing house on the lot.
And it's gonna be turned into new cranberry bogs?
No, it's already
Yeah.
existing bogs. The 35-acre tract is existing cranberry bog and vacant land, so it's just to remain as is and to continue on as a cranberry farm.
Great.
So any other questions? I think what we'll do tonight is, since,
receive.
yeah, we'll just receive this, and we thank you for the explanation, and then we'll just have Stephen look this over, and if everything's okay, we'll approve it at the next meeting.
Very good, that's fine
All
with
right.
us.
All right.
Mr.
Any-
Chairman, as a point of reference, the next meeting will be January 22nd.
Correct.
Any other questions by anyone? All right.
Thank you
Okay,
very
thank you
much.
very much.
Nice to see you again. We haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Chairman.
In a while.
The next thing, we have a couple of public hearings here that have continued. And if you would want to speak about this, the first one is the application of Borrego Solar Systems. And this was at 0 Wareham Street in Carver.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. We did open the public hearing on that at our last meeting. We do have many of the TRC memos, actually all of the TRC memos have now been received based on the applicant's revisions. Given that we have 4 members sitting tonight, and 4 members are necessary for a special permit, with an absence, the tradition has been to allow the applicant to request a continuance to the next meeting that we have a full sitting board. So we did receive a request for a continuance on the 0 Wareham Street to our next meeting on January 22nd.
And we'll have to vote on that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Chair, I make a motion to continue the public hearing to 0 Wareham Street to our next meeting, which is the 22nd.
22nd.
I'll second
At
that.
7 o'clock.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that was unanimous. The next is the application of David Mulcahy, and we have 2. So this is the application of David Mulcahy.
For the site plan review, and the second application we have for the gentleman is for a special permit application.
Okay.
In our bylaws, when both are necessary, the process shall be combined. Given that we have 4 members sitting this evening, the same courtesy was extended to the applicant, and I believe we received a request to continue that project as well to our next meeting on January 22nd.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue the site plan review for 157 North Main Street to January 22nd at 7 PM.
I'll second that.
So that's for both?
No, that's
Oh,
just the
just for
site
the
plan
site
review.
plan, okay. So we have a motion, and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue the special permit for 157 North Main Street to January 22nd at 7 PM.
We have a motion,
Second that.
and we have a second. Those in favor?
Aye. Thank
All
you.
right. Nobody's left. I guess nobody
I see
came,
a full crowd.
nobody came for those. All right. The next is, let me dig out the public hearing notice. So. Oops. Something else.
Mr. Chairman, did you find it in your packet?
I know it's here somewhere. Let me see, on application, I've just, 2230, log of 31. Okay, here it is right here. It's 31. Okay, yes, thank you. All right, so the next is, I have a public hearing notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Town of Carver zoning bylaw, the Carver Planning Board will hold a public hearing on January 8th, 2019 at 7 PM in the Carver Town Hall, Meeting Room 1, on the application of Cranberry Point Energy Storage LLC requesting a special permit and site plan review pursuant to sections 2230 of the Carver zoning bylaw. It's located at 31 Rhea Main Street in Carver, Mass. It's Assessors Map 61 and 10-0-R and 7-0-R to allow a 150 megawatt battery storage facility in a residential agricultural district. Any persons interested and wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. A copy of the plan is on file at the Planning Department and may be reviewed during normal business hours. The Carver Planning Board, Bruce Mackey, Chair, and it was advertised, Carver Reporter, published dates December 21st and December 28th of 2018.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
My name is Richard Cirque, and I'm the attorney for the applicant before you. Let me just bring some background information to your attention briefly. In December of 2017, an option to lease was entered into by Sovereign Energy Storage, LLC, with Gary Weston, trustee of Weston Realty Trust B, for the subject property. Sovereign Energy subsequently assigned the option to NL Group. In 2018, the annual town meeting voted to amend the zoning bylaw to add battery storage to the list of uses allowed by special permit in all zoning districts. Cranberry Point Energy Storage, LLC, in behalf of NL, is here before you tonight seeking a special permit for battery storage on Mr. Weston's property at 31R Main Street. Under your bylaw, as you know better than I, the criteria for issuing special permits requires that the special permit granting authority, in this case the planning board, consider each of the following: the social, economic, or community needs which are served by the proposal, traffic flow and safety, including parking and loading, adequacy of utilities and other public services, neighborhood character and social structures, impacts on the natural environment, and potential fiscal impact, including impact on town services, tax base, and employment. Cranberry Point is also seeking site plan approval, which is required because this project involves construction of an industrial structure. The site plan criteria are also well known to you under section 3100 of the zoning bylaw, and those are set forth in section 3170. Site plan approval shall be granted upon determination of the board that the requirements of section 3100 and all other applicable requirements have been satisfied. The planning board may impose reasonable conditions at the expense of the applicant, including performance guarantees, to ensure that the performance standards are met. With me tonight are Alex Frankel, who is to my immediate right, of Sovereign Energy, and he's going to make the main presentation, which consists of nothing more than 15 slides. To his right is Gary Garfield, a registered professional engineer, who's here to make supplementary information available to you within the area of his expertise. Behind me are Giovanni Bertolino of NL, and to my left is Sam Brandon of NL, and they'll be here for resource purposes. And before I turn over the podium, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Frankel, I just want for the record to reserve all rights based on my January 6, 2018 letter to the board. And with that, with your permission, I'll turn the podium over to Mr. Frankel.
Hello, thank you all, and thank you for hearing us out regarding this project. Today, I'm gonna talk in 3 or 4 parts. The first, I just want to give some context on how we got here and what energy storage projects do. Secondly, I want to talk about Enel Group and their background, and then I'm going to talk specifically about the project and then open it up to questions from you or the citizens who are here tonight. So This is part of a state program. In 2016, Governor Baker's administration adopted a procurement target for all of the utilities in the electric system to procure a certain amount of energy storage. And the intent of all of these projects is to provide balance to the grid, balance the supply and demand of electricity as more and more renewables, solar and wind, are coming into the state. So these projects can be built instead of very costly substation upgrades or new gas pipelines or new fossil plant capacity actually being built. This is kind of a replacement technology for those services. And this is relatively new now. There are not that many projects on the grid, but over the next 10 years, it's going to be very commonplace in the Northeast, California, and across the country. Next slide, Tim. So, to talk briefly about Enel. Enel is one of the largest electricity companies in the world. They're actually the national electric utility company of Italy. They own most of the electric grid in Spain and South America. So they have about 64 million customers who are buying electricity for them across the world. Next slide. In the US, it's a bit of a different business model. They own renewable energy generation facilities, mostly wind and mostly in the Midwest. However, the headquarters for all of their US operations is actually in Andover, Mass. They have 500 people who are working on specifically the renewable side there. They also just bought one of the largest clean energy companies in Massachusetts called Enernoc, and now they have 2,000 employees in Massachusetts. Big office downtown, plus the office in Andover. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk more about our project specifically. So as we go through these various slides that show the layout and the site plan, you're going to see a big line that goes directly through the middle. That's because the project is currently sited on two separate parcels that are owned by Mr. Weston. We are planning to bring an A&R, which is going to take out that line, to the next planning board meeting on the 22nd. Next slide, please. So for some context, that red arrow is the project site, and that's the greater area around it through a Google Earth image. On the right-hand side is a more detailed site plan of what we're specifically putting there. And I just want to describe what these what this equipment is. So on the northwest corner is a small substation, which includes transformers, and that is the point that is going to actually interconnect to the existing transmission lines, which are running north-south on the west side of the property. So that's we call that a substation. It's a small substation, similar to the very large substation that's already there to our north. The other equipment on the site we refer to as strings, and these strings are comprised of battery cabinets. You can see right behind me, that's a mock-up of one of these battery cabinets. That's Tesla equipment. They're literally cabinets that open up, and inside these cabinets are trays of small battery cells that are wired together. So the string, all these items that are on the sheet here, these strings are comprised of a battery cabinet, a bidirectional inverter. So battery cabinet stores the electricity. The bidirectional inverter charges and discharges the electricity, and then at the end of a string is a transformer, which brings the electricity up to the high voltage level for it to be put back onto the grid. Next slide, please. So this image shows a radius around the center of our project site. And this is just to give everyone a sense of the relative distances we're talking about. So the the smallest circle in there is 100 feet radius. The next circle is a 500-foot radius, and the last circle is a 1,000-foot radius. So that 1,000-foot radius basically envelops the substation itself that we're interconnecting to. And it's a lot of megawatts on a relatively small area. So people might be used to the scale of solar, which might be 1 megawatt for 5 acres. Here, our total site's about 5 acres, and we have 150 megawatts. Next slide, please. This is a more detailed visual layout of the layout itself. So I just want to kind of describe what's around it. So directly on the west side of this image is a very large transmission easement with high voltage lines running north-south. There's actually also a transmission line directly to the north of this project with lines running east-west. And that transmission easement is actually between our project and the substation itself. There is a wetland feature that's in between these two different, we'll call them islands, of battery facilities. However, the wetland doesn't run that far north, so we're going to build an access road to the north here. And I believe that is the 65-foot wetland buffer?
That's correct.
Yeah. All right, can we go to the next slide, please? This is the same dimensions and the same image with some different colors, just for everyone's reference. All these pink items are the strings of batteries, inverters, and transformers. The green and yellow area that's on the northwest of the property is the substation that we're going to build. And in this specific image, there's actually we've included the planned infiltration basin for water. Next slide, please. So this is a pretty simplistic, but I think descriptive view of some visual impacts from the project. So number one is where the east-west transmission easement crosses Purchase Street. That's item one, and there's some overgrowth there in the image, so you can't quite see the transmission easement itself. Number two is on Main Street, where the north-south transmission easement crosses Main Street. Number three is actually the current entrance for Eversource to their own substation on Main Street. So they use that entrance for their own maintenance. And then number four is the where the east-west transmission easement that's to the north of our project crosses Main Street. Next image, please. So I want to just make sure that I included a visual example of what these cabinets themselves look like. There are some technology changes in our industry, so there may be some small differences between this and what's built, but this is the anticipated technology. And if you were to open one of these doors, it really looks like a server rack inside. So when one or two times per month that someone comes on site and they perform maintenance, they simply open those doors and they retract a tray, and then they may look at a specific cell or a specific unit inside and perform maintenance or take a reading. And then they simply put the tray back in, and then they leave it alone. Next slide. So there's one key component about site safety which I wanted to make sure that I discussed. And that's that there's two different methods of safety. The first is preventative maintenance. And so this project is monitored 24/7, 365 from a control room that's operated by Enel, where all of the strings that I showed you before have about 1,000 cells inside of them, and every cell's temperature, voltage, and amperage is monitored 24/7. And if any single cell comes out of range for a specific period of time, there's an automatic shutdown feature where the cell first will shut down, and then if any sort of an event continues, then the module, which is that tray, will all shut down, and then the rack, which is the individual cabinet, will shut down, and then the entire cabinet itself, that string, would shut down. If there's a temperature fluctuation that's abnormal, voltage, amperage, or if there's any loss of communication with that cell, it's an automatic shutdown feature that will happen. And then what will happen is a maintenance worker will be dispatched to take a look at what specifically happened with that cell itself or with the module. Can you go to the next slide? So some other key issues just surrounding this technology. So there's no water stored or regular water usage at the site. Every single cell is made of solid state material. There's no liquid in any of these cells themselves. There's a bit of liquid cooling that's ensuring that the units themselves stay within a certain temperature range, but these aren't like valve regulated lead acid batteries. They're solid state batteries, very similar to what's in your phone. And they're all completely sealed 100% of the time. There's zero particulate emitted at any point from these batteries. My next point there is that we conducted a sound study of this site based on the Tesla equipment, and it determined that the impact was under 10 decibels at the property line, which is in accordance with state law. Next slide. So, in closing on this section, the benefits of the project are there's an expected 15 to 22 million in municipal revenue through a pilot through the 20-year term of this project. That's what we anticipate. The facility itself is unmanned, and there's probably 1 to 2 maintenance visits per month, which is expected to be on the same scale or less than the abutting Eversource facility. The batteries itself are solid state without additional hazardous material stored on site, and the site is surrounded by trees from all visual impact directions except to the north, where there's the existing substation, which is going to be taller than our structure itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gary, do you want to add anything? Okay. That's our presentation. And we wanted to leave plenty of time for questions from the board and also from the public.
Okay. Thank you. Our, Stephen, our engineers haven't hit.
Apologies, Mr. Chair. You were asking a
The
question
town's
about-
engineers haven't had time to look at this project yet.
There were some revisions to the lot lines, partly because of, I understand, ongoing negotiations with regard to the lease, as well as in preparation for the A&R. Contained to the right of your packets should be 2 memos. One is from the Assistant Deputy Fire Chief, Jesse Boyle. The other is from Andy Glines, who this board is familiar with as a representative and engineer at Fuss & O'Neill.
Okay.
They were dated December 10th and December 11th, respectively. Those memos do contain some recommendations to be mindful of as they were designing the project from the fire department and to ensure public safety. For the most part, you'll see, though, in that memo that it is fairly favorable to the project. The same is true for the Fuss and O'Neill memo. There were some items that were waiting to be reviewed further still by them, stormwater management, which we received today, and just a couple of other things that we'll certainly have wrapped up in time for our next meeting on the 22nd.
And the fire department has looked at this. That was the first memo that
That's
you
correct, Mr.
talked
Chairman.
about.
And
Okay.
we've actually done 2 technical reviews for this project. One was a preliminary TRC, and then a follow-up technical review committee with all of the regulatory staff and professional staff for this town, as well as our peer review engineers at Fuss and O'Neill.
All right, any of the board members have any comments at this time before I open it up to the public?
I think we're going to vacate.
There's a lot to swallow here, so
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna need time. I would love to hear what people have to say.
Yeah, sometimes we do that when it's such a big project like
Yeah.
this, yeah. But I'm not going to stop anybody from the board that has any other questions before it goes out to the public.
I just have one that I think might be helpful, not only to me, but to the public in general. I want you to talk a little bit in specifics about the site preparation. Number one, I'm looking for the amount of clearing that's going to take place, what the grade's going to look like, and what the subsoils are going to be underneath each one of these storage facilities. And I know that you say there's no waste or anything if there's an overheating. You talked about the auto shutdown system. I have a couple of questions on that, but I'm just saying say, for instance, I want to give you a scenario so we can better address the site preparation, what I'm looking for. You have a fire in one of these units because this gets awful hot, okay? We have a fire I know that these systems have a self-contained fire suppression system in them. When they do go off, where's that waste go to? And if as our fire department's going to respond to the fire on site and to battle a fire that's existed, where's the runoff going to? So I'm looking for we're all on private wells here, and cranberry industry depends upon the water flow in this town, and that's our lifeline. So I'm looking at how that's all going to be contained underneath your facility that you're proposing. In a nutshell, that's what I'm looking for.
Do you want to take that?
All right. Quite a few questions in there.
Sorry,
That's
it
okay.
all rolls into one.
There's a little bit over 200,000 square feet for the project area that will be cut. The soils out there, we've already done test pit excavations, and you're looking at a fine to medium sand with trace levels of silt and trace levels of gravel. That information is used in the stormwater management plan. AECom, which is one of our subcontractors, has developed the stormwater management plan, and in doing so, they're required to do a grading plan. So the town should have that grading plan. I believe it was sent over in the stormwater package this evening. I've been out of cell phone reach here, so I haven't confirmed that, but it was supposed to be sent over this evening. So, okay, so you've got that. Relative to the fire department response, the way that a potential fire would be fought is with water. That's the preferred suppressant. The design of the system, or the design of the layout, has a minimum of 24 feet around the interior perimeter of the fence, and that was a direct request from the fire department. So there's full access for fire trucks to go ahead and maneuver within the chain link fence area. The water from a potential fire is going to follow the same path as the stormwater does. So initially, we have designed, and actually, I know Sam had pointed out the stormwater detention basin. There's actually one south of each lobe there. There you go. And there's another one, there you go. There's one over there as well. So the first line of defense in the event of, a fire would be that the impacted, and again, we're not necessarily sure the impact that we'd have, using water, but that water would go ahead and be able to be seen in the infiltration swales. So it's possible that we can go ahead and, cut that off, maintain it. That's an issue that I think we probably need to respond more technically. Fire prevention, it's easier to understand. Fire fighting and suppression, I'd prefer to leave that to our professionals to go ahead and give you a more accurate response than I can give you now.
That's fine. We're just starting this process. So.
Yeah.
Would this project be possible because, the reason that this project is at this location is because it's next to the existing substation? And it needs that component to, okay, so we only have that one existing substation in Carver, so we don't have any other, so something like this probably couldn't happen any other place.
No, so this substation is one of the largest substations actually in Massachusetts. It's extremely important. If you think about the transmission system as a highway system, it's the largest east-west and the largest north-south coming together. And over the next 10 years, there's a huge amount of wind that's going to be coming offshore of the Cape and north of Long Island that's going to be shooting through this area. And so the grid's going to benefit greatly from the ability to absorb all that power that's coming, not necessarily at the time when people need it. And it'll charge at those moments and then discharge back into the peak.
I know that was a concern of mine, because I know that a lot of people think that this type of facility could happen anywhere, but that's just not true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you would need for a facility of this size, you need a substation of a comparable size, and there's only one in this sort of region.
Okay, just in this area.
In this area.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I got another question, just to follow up with you, and talk a little about the auto shutdown system, the monitoring system. You said that it was monitored 365, 24 hours a day. If there's a fault that's indicated, is that done by a computer-based system, or is that done by a human being monitoring the system that says shut it down?
It's done by both. So the project itself is subject to what's called a SCADA protocol,
Yep.
Which is the communication protocol that all utility infrastructure that's federally regulated has to be under and has to be in compliance with. So nuclear plants, major gas facilities, major substations, and transmission lines are all using the same communication protocol. In addition to that, there are trained professionals who are, so that's the communication system. When these faults occur at a cell level or at a module level, there are automatic shutdowns that occur, but that automatic shutdown alerts an individual who is standing in front of a control station. And then a diagnostic system, a diagnostic plan comes into place where he'll take a look at it. He will alert a specific technical specialist who has a thorough understanding of the system if that happens to not be him at that moment. And then the maintenance protocol is put into place. Yeah, a specific power outage that would cause a fault would also cause a shutdown in a safe manner. So they would shut down individual units safely so as not to promulgate any other issues that might be happening on the grid in other parts of the local area.
Okay. Any other questions? Any board members? All right, we'll open this up to the public.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
My microphone is at the end of the table here.
It's a nice
if-
mic.
Okay.
Like that. If folks could speak into the microphone so
Yep.
that we can pick it up for the video broadcast.
Yeah,
that would be helpful.
Yeah, I noticed at our last meeting, by not talking to the microphones, it didn't come out very good. You couldn't hear what people were talking about. So what I'd like is, if you can raise your hands if you want to come up, if you could address your questions to me, and then we'll have them answered. I just don't want a dialogue and a long conversation back and forth to people over here. If you could address the question, and then we'll have them answer that. It'll be a little more orderly. And is there anybody out there that has any questions? If you could step forward and please talk into the microphone, please, and give us your name and address.
You say your project's a 20-year duration?
Sir, can we get your name, sir? Name and address, please.
Brian Hubert, 49 Main Street.
Thank you.
Okay, the project runs its course, 20 years goes by. What happens to the facility?
So a couple different things could happen. The most likely scenario is that this continues to be a strategic place for this type of project on the grid, and it's recommissioned for another 20-year term, depending on the technology. However, if those market conditions changed and it's no longer economic or serves a purpose, it would be decommissioned, and we're currently so it'd be decommissioned by the owner. We're actually currently discussing holding a decommissioning bond with the town, because we don't know who's here in 20 years, but that bond or letter of credit or insurance policy would be held by the town.
And how do you dictate how much this bond will be worth?
So the bond will be the value, will be essentially the value of the civil work for the construction. So the bond is assuming that all of the equipment will be taken away and disposed of by the owner, plus the site itself and all of the infrastructure will be taken out, will be pulled out, and will be disposed of or repurposed by the owner. And then the site itself will be restored to its original condition. And so we're actually we're not only gonna hold a bond with the town, we're gonna hold an insurance policy for essentially the exact same thing with the owner.
And that'll be transferable because you guys will sell this 40 times in 20 years. So that'll be transferable to the next owner, the next owner, the next owner.
So the owner, it's gonna be held with the Weston Trust, with our counterparty on the lease, who's still gonna own the land.
Okay.
And so that it will stay with the lease owner, who's the counterparty to whoever happens to own the project at that time.
Okay, now I'm going to defer back to his question because you lawyered right around it. What is the suppression in that machine? What do they use? If it's self-contained, is it water or is it another type of fire suppressant that is in that machine?
Yeah, so for the types of batteries that we are proposing at this site, it's only water that's used.
That's it. So it's got like a built-in sprinkler system.
So these specific units actually don't have a built-in sprinkler system. The plan is to have a couple of fire trucks that are ready to come to the site should there be an
So
issue.
there's no suppression in the machine.
So for these specific units, which are manufactured by Tesla, there's this automatic shutdown system
Yep.
fire is not, water is not stored on the site, and if there's a heat event that's producing any smoke, then there would be a call.
So there's no fire suppression in the machine, other than automatic shutdown?
There's no fire suppression for these specific units other than automatic shutdown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And will it be Tesla? Is it guaranteed to be a Tesla unit? Is it, because you're talking noise levels?
Yeah.
Well, ABB may make one, Mitsubishi may make one. Are they all comparable?
So different units. So the difference between all these different batteries, they're all in a similar type of cabinetry, but some of them have a different chemistry. So for a different chemistry, there might be a separate associated method of fire suppression. So some of these units actually do have on-site water storage or some type of on-site chemical storage. For these specific units, their preferred method is just the shutdown plus calling the fire department, and it's only water that's used. At this point, it's anticipated it's going to be Tesla.
So really, for the town to make a informed decision about how they're gonna suppress a fire in this, they need to know what you're gonna put in.
Yeah, I mean, and we've talked to the fire department several times about their preferred method for fire suppression, and that's how we got to this
But
design.
that'll be dictated by the type of unit you put in. Because you're telling me that they all have a different compound or a different material inside, so if they, I'm just looking for
Yeah.
protection of the people, and do we have to buy more stuff to,
Yeah, so the key differentiator is really between the different technologies is really if there is on-site fluid, either water or other, for purposes of fire suppression, or is it this type of system where it's only the shutdown? I totally understand your point. At this time, the design that's been proposed to the town is these Tesla units
Okay.
with this methodology.
thank you.
Maybe another perspective on this, something that we hadn't mentioned, but as part of our health and safety for this, we will have to have a contingency plan that would be put together. And that contingency plan, and we've discussed this at the 2 prior TRC meetings, would be a collaborative effort with the town fire department. So it's not as though we are going to write up a plan and say, okay, this is what we're going to do. It's more that we're going to sit down with the fire department and say, this is what we think we can do. What do you think about this? And they can look at it and say, well, you know, you might want to tweak this, or you might want to do something different. You know, initially, when we had the first thought of doing this project, we were down somewhere around 10, 15 feet in between rows and whatnot. And it was the fire department that said to us that you really, you know, we'd really like to see 24 foot at a minimum. So we go back to the drawing board and we move things around. I know Alex has gone back to Mr. Weston and said, you know, hey, we're going to need some more space. And so it's an iterative process, but it will be in collaboration with the fire department. And one of the members of the TRC also represented the police and the emergency response group here as well. So that's something that is not developed. It's not in the process of at this point, but that's something that will need to be done.
How many meg is each unit?
How many megawatts is each
Unit.
individual unit? Do you know how much each individual unit is?
Not off the top of my head. We
Yeah,
have-
so there are, I believe that there are 2.5 megawatt inverters in each string. So that'd be 2.5 megawatts, and then we think in terms of megawatts and megawatt hours, so it'd be 2.5 megawatts, 5 megawatt hours per each of these units.
We have 128 strings, so.
How many units per string?
Well,
So-
when you have 150 megawatts
so they-
divided by,
So these might be 1.25 megawatts in the design. In total, so it's 150 megawatts nameplate capacity that gets put on the grid. In reality, it's a little bit bigger to account for losses. So if it's 120 strings, it's probably 1.2 megawatts per string, 4 megawatt hours. Yeah.
and what you see behind us here is what a string is.
That's a full string.
That's a full string. And then what you see up on the drawing is, if you look real closely, you'll see 4 of those set together. So you'll basically take 2 of those back to back, because you only need to access one side. And there's 2 different configurations. On the east side, there's groups of 4. And on the west side, the 1, 2, 3, the top 4 strings or so have 6 in a row.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
I do.
See, all these people here, only one question?
My name's Harold Taylor. I'm at 4 Pine Ridge Way here in Carver. Is there, or what is the financial benefit to the town?
Okay, I think you went over that,
Yeah.
but go, please.
So we're in very early stages of a negotiation for a payment in lieu of taxes to the town, a pilot program. In our current financial model, based on our analysis of the tax code, it's about 23 million over the 20-year term. So it's a very, the reason I can't answer specifically is that we're anticipating that there's going to be some cost reduction between today and when this is built, which would lower the tax basis. But it's about at this point, as we model it, it's about 23 million. That absolute value may be negotiated to be spread out over more years or fewer years as we negotiate the pilot with the town, but that's what's in the budget at the moment.
Cornelia Shea, 148 Plymouth Street. Is this going to be visible from the road?
Can you go back to the visual impacts slide? So I think that, this is images that, pictures that we took. I think the only place that it's visible, it could potentially be visible, is if you look at image 4 there. The initial trees that you see, which are the lighter color, that are in the sun, those will be staying there. Those are on, that's, I can just show you, do you want to show what that is?
You're speaking of these here?
Yeah,
Okay.
those are, if you look just to the transmission easement, up. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. So these trees are this, and this is staying. There's some shadowed trees right here, which are this, which will be going. So from here, if you like through that angle, some of these trees will stay. This would be the visual impact from the road.
All right. Last question. Recovery in case there is a fire and water suppression is used. I know you mentioned the catch basin, but stormwater catch basins aren't really meant to recover some of the chemical waste and various other debris that might come into that. Who would be responsible for the cleanup, and have you worked out a plan for that to cover the costs and various other associated issues?
Yeah, so the project owner would be responsible for all the cleanup. the method that we've used so far to make the landowner feel comfortable has been with an insurance policy. And the amount of that insurance policy is in excess of expected issues associated with any event.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Everybody's had good questions. Is there anyone else? Oh, seeing no, oh,
I can do it from here. How does Eversource feel about this?
Yeah, the question is, how does Eversource feel about this? So, this project is connected to the wholesale electricity system. So there's a federal authority which is called ISO New England, the Independent System Operator of New England. It's a federally regulated body, and they act as an intermediary between all transactions. So the project's going to be buying and selling power from Eversource 24/7, 365. So there's a relationship there, but it's through an intermediary. Well, the place that we do interface with Eversource is with the electrical interconnection to their wires, and for that we are in the middle of a 2.5-year process through which they study all potential impacts to their system based on the operation of our project, and they at the end the result of that is essentially a scope of work for how we're going to connect to them. I don't know how the individuals feel about it. From an economic perspective, this is very positive for Eversource's customers.
yes, please.
Yeah.
If you could please use the microphone just so everybody at home can hear what you're saying.
I've got a loud enough voice. You know, how big are these units?
If you could give us your name and address,
Clifford
please.
Higgins, 19 Pine Ridge Way.
Thank you.
How big are the units?
The question is, how big are the units? So, the specific dimensions of these units themselves.
The cabinet, right?
Yeah, which are the string. I think they're 6.5 feet tall, and that's by about 14 feet wide. And so what you're going to have is, so this is going to be by 4. There's going to be one here, one behind here, and then another 2 right there.
Okay.
So in total, they're going to be similar to, as a whole, they're going to be a similar size to a 53-foot tractor trailer ISO container.
How many cabinets on the property?
It's
There's 128 of those.
128.
128.
Okay.
Now, you also mentioned something other than water. One of your words you used today was coolant.
Yeah.
That bothers me. What is the coolant comprised of?
Yeah. We're going to have to get back to the group on the specific chemical content of the coolant. So the coolant that we're talking about is, and we will get back to the group on the specific compound, but it's flowing through the bidirectional inverters.
Correct.
And it's the exact, that is, just for reference, that's the same technology that's in all the solar systems in people's homes as well to cool,
Okay.
to perform liquid cooling.
Right.
In homes, in offices, and in other projects, larger solar projects. The specific content of that coolant, I don't know off the top of my head. So we'll have to
If I
come
can
back.
add, it's a water-based solution. It's exactly the same used in Tesla cars.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a.
Could you have him come up to the mic, please?
The liquid cooling used is exactly the same that Tesla uses in their cars. Actually, there is exactly the same tank for liquid cooling that they have in the Tesla Model S, the same radiator and piping that make the liquid flows through the batteries and the radiator. It looks very much like a car inside.
In each cabinet, you say there's 100
For the record, that was Giovanni Bertolino of NNL.
Thank you.
Okay. You said there was 128 cabinets?
Correct.
In each cabinet contains how much coolant?
Yeah, we're gonna have to get back to you on that. we have a spec sheet, and we're just gonna have to reference it and send that to you. Is that the right way to?
Sure, yeah, to Stephen, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, this isn't going to be the only meeting. There'll be another one anyway, so any questions that aren't answered tonight will be answered at our next meeting. Yes, please. And if you could come up and use it, if there's a way that you can get
It's
through.
a real quick question, so I'll try to
If you
talk
could give
fast.
us your name at least.
My name is Maggie St. Dennis, and I live at 19 Pine Ridge Way.
Okay, thank
I
you.
don't know if this is a dumb question or not, but is there any chance of like any explosion or that kind of thing?
The question was, is there any chance of explosion? So the risk of explosion is in that it's what we've been talking about in terms of fire suppression. I think it's in the same vein. It's an extremely low risk of any type of event that is a thermal propagation where there's actually smoke or fire. The methodology for containing any of these types of fire propagation issues is this 24/7 monitoring and then automatically just shutting down. And so, just to be clear, a shutdown occurs when there's any temperature change that's out of the normal range, and that's just a shutdown. And so it's a much larger temperature change that would actually lead to a propagation of or a fire event. So it's a very low risk, and the response is either is managing heat and also having a plan in place with the fire department.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Hi, Marilyn Martin, 24 Pine Ridge Way in Carver. My question is related to capacity. So I'm sure you've done projections in terms of the amount of demand for storage. How many years are you projecting that this will satisfy capacity, satisfy the demand, and you have sufficient capacity? My concern comes from your description of the reason you're putting it here is because we have one of the largest substations, was that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Substations. So, when are you going to come back and want to build more is basically the question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's a very good question. So the power capacity of this facility that we're proposing is significantly larger than what's used by the town of Carver. It's a regional project, and so the limiting factor on being able to develop more is really that there's two actually. One is space. There's not space for more here. The second is when we go through this process that Eversource is a part of to interconnect to the grid, we're applying for a very specific amount of megawatts. And if we were to go through that process, we'd have to go through it completely again. And we'd have to have both space and ensure that there was adequate capacity in the specific substation to interconnect. So our intent is to hold it at this current level, which is 150 megawatts. We've done analysis, and we think that here there's enough space at that substation to get that much in, and then we've really maximized usable area here. If you look to the northwest, that's all wetlands. It's really just that area to the south that's
not
viable.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, any of the board Members have any additional questions after?
Mr. Chair, I do. The event that this could be struck by lightning, would that be something that would cause these to overheat before you could do something about it by shutting it down, or the fire department being able to get there in time to address it?
So I'm gonna need to talk to the manufacturer about a specific lightning strike scenario. It's a good question. I will say that the substation next door is significantly taller than what we have, but I'm gonna have to get back to you on that scenario. I don't know the propagation that would occur in that event. I assume that it's the same shutdown scenario, but I've not considered that. So we'll have to get back to you. Well, do you have another question?
Well, as part of that question, I'm sure that most of the people in the audience, the citizens, are concerned. Will brought it up again. You know, a phone can catch on fire. I think some of them are recalled. So I guess it would put people at ease to know that if a small phone that fits in the palm of your hand can catch on fire and can be a potential danger, can there be some kind of a chain reaction that goes right through these? And now we do have an enormous explosion on our hands, and then our fire department might not even be able to handle it without other fire departments coming in.
Yeah. So I think, your concern is a very reasonable question. Another way to think about this is that these units and what we're the exact same chemistry of and form factor and technology that we're going to put into this site is the exact same technology that's flying down the road at 80 miles an hour most of the time. When you look at this project, I mean, the industry is called stationary storage that stays in one place. And so all of the fire suppression and heat management protocols for this technology have come from the automotive industry, where they're dealing with much tougher conditions all the time. So I just have to go back to the automatic shutdown scenario where if there's any type of a heat management event, it's just, instead of propagating, it's just a pure turning off of the system and turning off of anything else around it that could get any type of heat affected.
One other point, when we met with the fire department, initially, we asked the question, or we explored whether we should put this in a building or not. And we have another site that's what the town wants, in a building. Well, in this case, one of the things that we discussed was the fact that if you look at the plan that's up there, these strings, or these groups of 4 of these, are isolated from each other. So let's use your lightning strike. If your lightning strike, hits one of those strings, it doesn't have an impact on the other strings that it didn't hit.
So it would only essentially impact the other 3?
Yeah, pretty much. Now, again, that's what we've talked about. We'll get back with you with an official word on that. But one thing that really wasn't mentioned tonight was when it comes to fire, in the words of the fire department, these are natural fire breaks. That it's not one long string, or all this stuff isn't connected side by side by side by side, much like a rail system that has 20 tanker cars on it. This is like, having an engine and, 2 cars, engine, 2 cars. And so the system, the way it's laid out, acts as a natural fire break.
Yeah. That was the initial feedback from the fire department that pushed us towards this design. They said these are fire breaks and we can get our fire truck within the lanes.
Okay, and then, so then the last part of that would be, let's say that the fire department makes the decision that maybe they aren't gonna be able to fight it with water, and you're gonna decide what it can be fought with, is the owner going to be the person responsible for seeing that our fire department is brought up to that standard in which they will be able to fight it?
So, for this technology, and the other technology which we would potentially consider in the future, which is called lithium iron phosphate, the only way to fight either of those heat propagation events in either of those technologies is with water or a water-based system. The other type of technology, which is not what we're proposing here, projects a foam onto the actual cells that are affected. But after that, if there's any further event, it's water that's recommended to fight the fire. So I don't think that there's any scenario that for these Tesla units, water wouldn't be what's used.
And again, understand the contingency plan has to be developed with the fire department's expertise inserted into that plan.
Mr. Chairman, geez, rather booming. Mr. Chairman, in the TRC memo you have from the fire department, condition number 9 that the planning board, that the fire department has discussed with the applicant is that training shall be provided to the fire department for mitigating emergencies on site.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
It's not a question at this time, but a comment to my fellow board members. In my opinion, it is very important that we develop a bylaw for this. As battery storage was presented at the public hearings before town meeting and at town meeting, it was, if this is added to the use schedule, we would develop a bylaw, determine what they look like, and everything else that goes along with it. And I think we are responsible to do that.
Well, I think we see is we have a lot of developing technology, and I think things change. And I think it was brought out tonight that we're just going to have probably just one of this type of project in town. We can think about that, but we're away from town meeting right now. And, you know, every week a project comes up that is different, and it would be difficult to draw up a bylaw. But then again, that's something we could look at. But now, right now, we have this project before us, and I think that's something we have to, I mean, we've had other things come up without a bylaw we had to deal with.
Mr. Chairman.
So, but in this particular case here, it would be, you know, generally in the bylaw, it's for screening, and it's for distance, you know, from other structures. And here we have almost 1,000 feet to any other property. And as far as screening, it's well screened. Of course, we're going to do a site walk out there to determine, you know, what, if extra screening is needed. But since it's so far away from everybody, and we do have concerns that everybody from the audience and the board has raised tonight, and those questions have to be answered at our next meeting. But this project is come before us, and I think we just have to deal with this right now.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just respond to that, I believe the board is obliged to evaluate the merits or lack thereof of the project based on existing bylaws.
Right. Any other questions?
Not at this time.
I'm good at this time.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned, and we would be more than happy to do a site walk here, and if we, board willing, continue the hearing to the 22nd, that would mean that sometime next week, I would assume that we would want to do a site walk How do we know or find out when that is? Stephen, do you have a date in mind, or will you get back to us? And
Mr. Chairman, since I was asked, typically, Gary, what happens here is the planning board will discuss and review their own schedules and then set that site walk. I'll work with you to facilitate that ahead of time. But since I have the mic and I'm talking, one of the things that I think will be important to prepare for that site walk is to perhaps put stakes on the perimeters of the project site. I think it would also be helpful for myself and the planning board to, if you're able to have some kind of a chalk sketch to show what the strings will look like on the ground inside of those perimeter spikes or stakes. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Oh, thank you. And if we could also have something out there indicating the heights of these structures at the major corners, might run that by Stephen. So we could actually walk the site, see what the height of these cabinets are going to be, and so we can just kind of look. This is a good time of year to do this because the foliage is down, so this is the least amount of screening that this project would have naturally. So if we could see where this is and then look around and make a determination if screening is going to be needed here or not. So I guess we could continue this meeting, entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until...
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Through you to the applicant, you think you're going to have a lot of the concerns addressed by the 22nd?
a good portion of them should have been addressed this afternoon. We will have, probably one more rendition of that plan, but it's not going to change a whole heck of a lot.
Yeah, we can have all your questions. We've written them down, and some of them we have to go to the manufacturer to discuss, but we will have all those answers by the next meeting.
Okay. All right.
I mean, if this has to go to another meeting, then we'll just have to handle it that way.
Yep.
All right.
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing for Cranberry Point Energy Storage to the January 22nd at 7 o'clock.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous. And then let's discuss a time for a site walk. And this site walk will be for just the planning board members only. I don't know if there are any citizens out there that would want to look at the site. You'd have to discuss any access to the property with the applicant, and if you wanted to walk the property. But this particular site walk will just be for the planning board. So what's a good time? So here we are at the 8th, and our next meeting is the 22nd. So we have the last half of this week and all of next week. Of course, we have some planning board members that aren't here with us tonight, but
The only possibility that I would have would be Wednesday, the 16th. I could maybe be back by 4:30. No, I honestly don't know if we're gonna have enough time.
oh, if we're going to have enough
Sunlight.
sunlight.
That's just me.
Yeah.
No, what about a week? I mean, like you said, this is going to take a while. It might have to be a weekend.
I wouldn't be able to do a weekend. I work 7 days a week, so.
Mr. Chairman and members, it looks like sunset on January 26th is estimated to be about 4:38 p.m.
There's no way we could do it in 8 minutes.
That's not good.
Don't worry about me. Need be, I'll get in. through the
Maybe,
plans.
yeah, Stephen can get together with you and walk the site. So what and
So,
Are you
well,
busy
here's
now,
the
too?
thing.
Yeah.
What if we had it at 4 o'clock with him trying to make it at 4:30.
Well, I mean,
He started
he-
at 4, you know what I mean?
he-
Is Wednesday good for you?
No, not this month.
Wednesday isn't good for you, all right.
Not this month.
I mean, we could even do a morning if, I can do a morning.
Mhm.
You know, what time would be good for you, Jen? I know that you have certain days that you are busy and others that you could do something like this.
Depending on the day, what are you leaning that week?
I am open to any time, any day. My last day
It's
of work
terrible
was
to be
the end
retired,
of 2018, so I am open.
Could I email you once I check my calendar at home?
That'd be fine,
Okay.
absolutely. And in fact, Mr. Chairman, seeing as we have some vacancies tonight with
Yeah.
Mr. Hoffman and our alternate, I'll be glad to facilitate Mr. Sinclair's request for the 16th, Ms. Bogart's request for any kind of special day. I'll run that by you, of course, and Kevin. And if a third day is necessary, I'll be glad to work with the other remaining members and the applicant to gain access to the site.
Okay, so maybe we'll make this determination later when we can speak to the other members that are
Do this
here
offline if
tonight.
you'd like.
The other thing, how long would it take you people to mark out, speak with Stephen, mark out the corners of the units out there, and then maybe give us some indication of the heights? How, would it take a week, or?
Imagine we could do it in a week.
So maybe maybe the question I'm asking is, when would you have this ready, so that then we could figure out when we're gonna go out there?
I think we can do within about a week. So today being Tuesday, we could get it done by next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday? Okay. So anytime after Tuesday, after the 15th, we could do that. Okay, so then, see if Stephen get in touch with the other planning board members that aren't here tonight, and we'll schedule that visit, and he can make arrangements if one of you people would be out there to
Absolutely, yep.
guide us through
Yep.
the woods out there. All right, well,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
very
much.
much.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
And I just want to thank the audience out there for being nice and orderly and asking a lot of good questions, and also the board members here. And hopefully we'll get all those questions answered at our next meeting. All right, next we have so we've done this.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
you want to have everybody, we have another public. Go outside.
If you plan on leaving, if everybody that plans on leaving could leave, and we want to continue our meeting here, and if you could move out of the hallway, maybe go downstairs if you want to talk to one another, because the noise from the hallway comes in here and it just makes it difficult to continue the meeting. And I thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to contribute, anybody who's here for the last project or the upcoming project, if you'd like to review any of the application material on file, they are in the planning office downstairs. Feel free to stop by. We'll be very glad to talk you through what has been submitted to us.
Not quite.
All right, the next public hearing we have is, I'll read this public hearing notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Town of Carver zoning bylaw, the Carver Planning Board will hold a public hearing on January 8th, 2019 at 7 o'clock in the Carver Town Hall, Meeting Room 1, on the application of Borrego Solar Systems, Inc., requesting a special permit and site plan review pursuant to sections 3100, 3580, and 5300 of the Carver zoning bylaw, located at 196 Tremont Street, which is Assessors Map 125, Lot 3 and 0, off Cranberry Road. This is the right one, right? Yeah. Assessors Map 125, Lot 9C in Carver, Mass, to allow a large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installation. The project includes a proposed solar array and energy storage facility in accordance with the bylaw in a residential agricultural district. Any persons interested and wishing to be heard should appear at the time and place designated. A copy of the plan is on file at the Planning Department and may be reviewed during normal business hours. Carver Planning Board, Bruce Mackey Chair, published dates December 21st and December 28th, 2018. I think
Mr.
we do
Chairman.
have to have the doors open, though, don't we?
Those doors have to be open. It's a
If- yeah, if we
public
could
meeting.
just- Yeah, if you
They-
could just ask those people
they
to
can- Yep,
move downstairs, please.
thank you, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Steve, could you run out there and have them move?
Thank you, Sarah.
We should hire her.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Do you want to introduce us? Shall we begin?
I guess people are slowly trickling downstairs, very slowly, but
As long as one of them's open, we're good. That's all right.
That's all
As
right.
long as one's open, we're good.
it must be broken. I guess that's why it was like that at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you.
apologize.
All right, yes, we're ready, and the noise level's down, and we can hear everybody.
Yeah, I think that's better. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. For the record, I'm Sarah Stearns with Beals and Thomas, and with me is attorney Richard Cirque and Zach Farkas from Borrego Solar Systems Incorporated. We are here tonight to talk about the proposed large-scale solar project located at 196 Tremont Street. We do have a Google Earth image on the screen for anyone who could see that. Zach put the pointer right on the proposed site. Thank you, Stephen. I'm sure many of you in the room are familiar with this area. It is an existing disturbed area behind a large cranberry bog system that you can see a bit of from Tremont Street and from Cranberry Road at the lower section of the screen up there. So just a few logistics. The project was advertised twice in the Carver Reporter on December 21st and 28th. Abutters were notified by Carver Planning staff. A technical review committee meeting will be scheduled, I'm told, sometime in the very near future. So we'll be discussing the project with town staff shortly and get some comments and feedback on that. I will note that we have gotten some preliminary feedback from Carver Fire Department. We like to start with the making sure the fire department gets early information, and we've received very positive feedback regarding access, in particular to this project so far. So in general, the project includes an approximate 4 megawatt renewable energy production and storage system, and laid out in a similar manner to some of the projects that we've been discussing recently with Borrego for the board's information. This site has been well thought out because of the existing disturbed nature of it. It has been actively used as part of the ongoing cranberry operations adjacent to it. Therefore, no significant tree clearing is proposed with this project. Very little site work is needed. It's has been preliminarily graded to a way that is going to be very useful to the solar array, with very little site work required. The plan for interconnecting the array, and Zach is here to talk about all the specifics of the array itself, but would be to use the existing bog road off of Cranberry Road, which connects the site, and Zach can point to it, as a way to connect to Cranberry Road. So again, very little site work needed. The road would be improved for Carver Fire Department and emergency access only, but essentially, the layout of the footprint is what we would be using for the proposed project as it is today. This project is owned by 80 Makepeace, and is part of the ongoing cranberry operations adjacent to it, colloquially called Crane Brook, because of the brook that runs through that bog system. One of the things that I'd like to bring to the board's attention is that the plan set that you have in front of you has actually already been modified a little bit, and for the better. The inverter and storage pad has been relocated from the southern portion of the site closest to the access road off of Cranberry Road to the center of the site, center of the proposed array rather, kind of nestled in similar to another project that we had gone through recently. Borrego Solar has sort of taken some of our lessons learned and things that have worked well for both the community and for the solar project, and we've tried to implement them in this project going forward. So that is a little bit different, and we can show you on the plan behind me. What is behind me is a little bit different from what you have. Again, this is what we've been talking with Carver Fire about. The second thing that has, the second significant thing that has been changed that you'll notice is the access roads. So this provides more room for the emergency services to access on 3 sides of the array and provide turning areas. So that on all sides was a better layout. So that's what we're working through now, and I just wanted to point that out because you may notice the plan behind me is a little bit different than what you have in front of you. So we will be incorporating that and comments that we get tonight and at the TRC and moving forward as we revise the plan set throughout the process. We understand that this is just the beginning of the process and wanted to give just a broad overview of location. Again, this site is previously cleared. We're not proposing significant tree clearing with this project. It's proposed on the level, existing leveled area in the upland adjacent to the cranberry bog, so not proposed on the bog or the hillside. What you see primarily from Tremont Street, as many of us who live in the area drive by on a daily basis, is sort of the open sand and gravel face of the slope. As part of this project, that slope would be loamed and seeded, so you would have from Tremont Street just a vegetated hillside as opposed to what we see now as a sort of sandy background to that area. For the board's information, we are also we have also filed a notice of intent with Carver Conservation Commission and have a site visit with that board scheduled for tomorrow, actually. So we'll be walking that since we are within jurisdiction of that commission as well. I guess lastly, just sort of in a general sense, similar to other projects that we've worked on, we do plan to file an A&R plan. There is a lot line that divides this site in an area that you can see on your plans. So we would sort of do a similar thing to what we have done in the past, would be to create a lot that encompasses the solar array, to just clean up the lot lines that are there, all in common ownership, but that would just be sort of a cleanup step. This project has also been sent to Carver's peer review consultant, Fuss & O'Neill. We did get some preliminary comments back yesterday or today from Andy Glines. Very few comments on this project. We did let them know that we have made those changes that I just noted, and they will incorporate that as they continue to review. So they have those preliminary plans. So all of this has been filed as a site plan review and combined special permit application, as we have done in the past, and is compliant with the zoning bylaw. The relevant sections are noted on the application forms, both of which are within the submission package, and discussed in further detail throughout the project narrative. I'm always happy to go through those individually, but in the interest of kind of keeping this presentation a bit general, knowing that we'll get into specifics, I can certainly leave it at that, and maybe leave any specific details about the array to one of these men sitting on either side of me. If I didn't note it, there is also a zoning district map within our submission, and this is in the residential agricultural district, like most of our town. Oh, go ahead, Rich.
The only thing I would add to what Sarah said is that, as you well know, state law provides that municipalities cannot unreasonably regulate such facilities, and this facility, as she noted, is compliant with the regulations that are codified in the zoning bylaw.
Do you want to add some specifics?
Just generally, I think, thank you all for coming out. I think primarily looking at the sign-in sheet, it feels like a lot of you folks are from the Pine Ridge community up off Tremont. So what we're doing is we're gonna have a site walk tomorrow. I'm happy to make myself available to any of you folks tomorrow in person if you guys want to talk through any questions or concerns. Just a couple of the comments that I heard and talked through just kind of in the lobby prior to this meeting that I want to just make clear. Sarah already said them, but first, no solar is going on any active bog as you look up there. So the closest solar array to the Pine Ridge community will be approximately 3,500 feet. Quite a distance, obviously, but the challenge we have here is it's 3,500 open feet, and you guys are approximately 15 to 20 feet from a grade standpoint above us. So if you look at our plan, we have our standard fence around it, and that was not meant to be sneaky and put in the kind of easiest thing. It was meant to just leave a blank slate so we can get feedback from you folks as well as from the board on what kind of fence might be appropriate for the western edge, which would be, if you look at that disturbed area, the western road. So we're happy to hear feedback on a stockade fence, a vinyl fence. Sometimes it's difficult to get subjective on what looks better or is more functional, so happy to get that feedback. Additionally, some folks have mentioned that the bog roads are used for walking and whatnot. None of the bog roads will be impeded by the solar project. None of them will be impacted in a negative standpoint. We will be running our power south from the array down to Cranberry Road. That will be done underground, not above ground, so there'll be a 2 or 3 week period where there may be a 3-foot trench in the road, but that'll be quickly filled in. So from a visual standpoint, more than 3/4 of a mile away, you'll see the kind of bank of the sand as it exists today. I drove by this morning just to kind of get the latest and greatest look. It's pretty raw, it's pretty sandy, and the expectation would be at the very bottom at grade is going to be the flat solar arrays. You folks will be looking at the side of the system, not the front. They'll all be arranged running east to west and facing south. So you'll be looking at the side of the arrays that are about 8 to 10 feet above the ground, and then you'll continue to look at that bank that rises about 30 feet up. And as Sarah said, part of the completion plan will be both stabilizing and seeding that bank. So the thought would be that by the time this is all done, there could be an improvement to the kind of day-to-day site that you guys see out there. So with that, I'll certainly answer any questions that may come up from the board or from the audience, and thank you all for coming out.
Yes, this access to the solar field is actually off of it's just a dirt road?
It's a bog road, yes.
Bog road, okay.
Yep, it's gated right now.
Just to clarify,
Yes.
there was so much information given out that some of it just,
Yeah.
some of it goes by me.
Yep, that's
And-
okay.
And the solar field complies with all the setback requirements because there are residents that live on Bradford Boulevard and Priscilla Mullins Way.
Yes, that's correct.
What are the setbacks? Do you have any idea from the property lines?
It's at least the 200-foot setback for the RA district. And on the western side, as Zach said, it's more like thousands of feet to the edge of the property line.
Yeah.
So on that eastern edge, it's no less than 200 feet from the property lines on Priscilla Way and, what's the boulevard called? Bradford Boulevard, thank you. And then it's also approximately 40 feet below grade, right?
Yeah,
So
I looked
it's-
at the topography there.
Right.
And, yeah.
So it's just over 200 feet on that eastern property edge. And it's currently vegetated, as you can see in the aerial photo. That's,
Yeah, Mr.
I think-
Chair, that would be my question. So that vegetated area in between
Yep.
the proposed site and that first road is about how much?
Um,
Foot-wise?
how wide is the
Yeah.
vegetation swath? I know it complies with what the bylaw stipulates, which is 50% of that 200. We're just over 200 feet setback, so it's about 100, maybe a little bit more, of existing mature vegetation there.
And none of that has to be cleared?
Correct.
Some scrub pine and stuff will be cleared at the very southern edge, but it's, very new growth. That picture might be a little bit deceiving. That
Right.
is more than 200 feet up there, mainly because as you go east toward, I forgot it again, sorry. Bradford Boulevard, a lot of those trees are on the landowners' properties up there. So it's greater than 200 feet visually there, but from our property line to the edge of our fence below the grade, we're right around that 50% of the 200 feet.
Yeah, I guess my question would probably be to the residents, can they see through Bradford and Priscilla Mullins Way to that site now at this time of the year?
They could probably see through, but they'd be looking over us. I think my contention would be that you wouldn't be able to see it from Bradford Boulevard. The only way you'd be able to see this site is from Pine Ridge Way, looking the 3,500 feet east. And then as you're driving, I guess it would be if you're driving east on Cranberry Road,
There's one little...
looking out the window to your left pretty quickly, you'll catch a glimpse of it, but
Right.
a very, very quick glimpse.
Thank you.
Now, does this also contain the battery storage
It
units?
does. It's the same configuration as the Hammond Street and the Federal Road project that we've been discussing with you guys.
Can we see this, Mr. Chairman?
Okay, right, yes, right in the middle.
Right in the center of the
Okay.
site.
So it's an energy storage of about just under 2 megawatts, so 1/75th of the size of the project that preceded us in the presentation. Instead of multiple strings, it's one single container. And visually, it's going to look exactly like what we discussed at previous hearings and what Mr. Sinclair showed in the pictures a couple weeks back.
Mr. Chair, so that single container is basically this, a back-to-back, 6.5 roughly foot high by 15 feet long.
Our technology is a little bit different than theirs, so ours is enclosed in a shipping container. So there was an image up there of
The one that-
a pretty white cabinet.
That's right,
That
like
pretty
the one
white
Will
cabinet
saw in
is
Winchendon.
inside of a shipping container, so it's going to
So
look.
it'll only be one.
It's only going to be one of them, yes, and it's
So-
a little bit smaller
In
from a
layman
scale.
terms, that would probably be like a pod that was how long?
We had about a 50-foot for the bigger ones, so I'd imagine what the exact spec is. It's probably a 35-foot because the site is such a smaller site compared to the two previous projects we showed. And it'll be oriented east-west, so there'll only be the short side will be
Right.
visible from the east.
So in a portable on-demand container
Yeah.
size, it would be about 35 feet long?
Yeah, smaller
And
size
about,
shipping container.
what, 8 by 8 square?
What do you think, Will? It's probably a little higher than 8. It's probably 8 by 10.
Yeah,
8
I
by
would
10
say.
square, okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair, is this land currently in 61A?
Yes.
So it'll be removed? So what will the tax revenue to the town be?
There'll be a rollback tax of the 5 years, as with any conversion of use from 61A. It'll only encompass the, was it 9 acres? The 9 or so acres that were being proposed, so it'll be 9 years of taxes at whatever the rate is times 5, or excuse me, 9 acres of the taxes at whatever the rate is times 5 years. So.
And then annually from here on out?
And then just like all the other projects, we'll continue paying real real property taxes at the commercial rate, and then there'll be a pilot agreement to cover the personal property taxes, and that'll be a same rate, a little bit lower dollar amount because of the smaller project as the other 2 projects, 3 projects.
You know what those dollar amounts are?
We're still negotiating them. I think I said that it would be somewhere around, I don't even want to guess now, I don't remember what I said on the record a little while ago, but it'll be, let me do some quick math. It'll be approximately somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000 per year for 20 years.
Okay.
For this single site.
Any other questions by, you have any more questions, Jen?
Not at this time, no.
Will, did you have anything?
I'm good for right now. I want to take a look at the application.
Okay. All right, since we've gone through the board, let's open this up to the public. If anybody would like to speak, we'll put a microphone out there. We even have a chair.
We have enough vacancy in the room, we can have a chair now.
We have a nice chair there, nice and comfortable. If anybody would like to come up, give us your name and address, please, and if you could just, you have a lady coming too, but.
Sorry. I'm Robert Shannon, I'm 2 Pine Ridge Way.
Okay.
And I have 2 questions. What is the life of the project? You know, is it a 10, 20-year project? And what is planned for the end of that, too? And the other is, during the installation, are you going to use things like earth screws to install these on, or is it going to be poured concrete, large steel structures? So those are pretty much my questions.
Sure. So first question, similar to other solar projects, we will put in place a decommissioning bond with the town so that monies will be available if we default on our obligation to remove the system in its entirety at the end of its operational use, which is targeted for 20 years but could extend up to 30 years depending on the energy in the market at the time. From a construction standpoint, that is pretty cobbly soil up there. Many of our sites we use driven piles, but in this site we're thinking it's going to be a screw foundation. In either case, there will be no poured concrete underground at all.
Just the inverter pad?
Yep, the inverter pad is a concrete pad, but that's above ground. And that would really be the only impervious surface we're introducing to the site, would be a relatively small concrete inverter pad just to hold all the equipment level.
And there was a lady, yes, if you want to come up, and you can either stand or sit in the chair, make yourself comfortable.
Before I go there, we have to hand out just a few copies of my comments.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Helga Stottmeyer of 2 Priscilla Mullins Way. I'm going to read you my comments because I'm afraid to be too tongue-tied. Is this the right? Yeah. On the layout and material plan, notes that the lot line between 125-3 and 125-9C is to be eliminated. Lot 125-9C, also described as Parcel A on Plan 36, page 828. I can provide you with a copy in a minute. That particular parcel was donated in 1994 by Mr. Piper to Cranebrook. At the time, the owner was Cranebrook Company, with a note attached that it is not to be a buildable lot, meaning no construction should happen on that particular lot. There's That agreement has been upheld by all subsequent owners of 125-3. How will this understanding be adhered to in the future? Will the note continue to be in effect even if the lot line has been eliminated? That's my most concern at this moment. And after you may be able to answer me, I still have a few other questions of general nature.
Okay.
Should I read the, yeah.
I gave him a copy of your questions. If there's any that you can answer now, or do you want to take this into consideration and then maybe answer them at the next meeting?
I haven't looked at the instrument that contains that language, but very often the phrase "not a buildable lot" refers to a prohibition against a building for single-family dwelling purposes
Correct.
being built,
Yes, that was
rather than any structure whatsoever.
That could very well be,
Yeah,
yes.
and
You have
that's what
to
I would
figure
assume
that out.
the
Yeah.
purpose of the note was.
Yeah, that's true. Would you like to hear my other questions?
Please.
Yes.
What is the lifespan of the solar panels?
So the solar panels can operate almost indefinitely. They are manufactured and warranted for 20 years. And as I said to a previous gentleman, the expected life of the entire project is 20 to 30 years, depending
good.
on the market climate, 20 to 30
So one
years.
doesn't have to worry about disposing them.
Not until the end.
For a while.
Not until the end, and when that time period comes, the architecture of a solar panel is quite simple. It's aluminum, it's glass, it's silicon, and it's copper and aluminum.
Yeah,
so a lot of those are known materials and recyclable materials.
That might answer my next question. Can our well water be protected even in the event of abandonment or decommissioning of the project?
There's nothing in the system that could impact the well water. Everything below ground is galvanized steel, or in some cases right on the surface, concrete, not unlike any other structure that's built. The panels themselves contain no liquid, nothing. The transformer, I should say, singular, does have a, how do I say this? It's like a mineral oil or a vegetable oil within it, and that is lowercase o organic material. The battery does have a coolant. Unlike the previous presentation, it's not a liquid coolant, it's a forced air coolant, very similar to an air conditioner. That's just an air conditioner fan that's just blowing fresh air into the container.
Oh, okay, thank you very much for that.
Problem.
Now, is the access to Miles Standish State Forest by fire engines assured? Because right now, you are abutting the state forest. And there is a gate at this moment.
Yes.
You are aware of
I
the gate.
did speak with Jim Kane of 80 Makepeace, the landowner, about that concern, and he did tell me that there is no plan to touch that gate or go anywhere near that gate. So
access is ensured.
Yes, and we can take a look at that
Yeah,
when we take a site
tomorrow.
visit with the planning board and with the commission tomorrow.
And is tree removal planned and where?
It is not planned. There is some minor scrub pine at the very south end of that oval that may end up getting cleared a bit, but as you see it today, if you walk out there, will be
Yeah.
what it looks like.
Looking at this map, I wasn't quite able to even locate the exact array.
Sure.
Is it near the sand pit?
It is
the sand pit.
It is the
Oh,
sand
good. That,
So-
it answers my
Yep,
question.
this
That's
is,
wonderful.
This is the sand
Yeah.
pit right here, and this
Because
is the
that's above where we live.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yep.
Below. Let me see
Below.
that.
I'm gonna leave
Yeah.
this here if anyone-
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me some good news.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for your comments and questions.
And just try to keep the line between these two properties so we don't get confused in the future about naming it a different number. It would have to be a different number then, if you combine two into one, no?
Well, the only reason that we are planning to combine the lots is because the zoning bylaw requires setbacks from lot lines of 200 feet. So the lot cuts right through the proposed array. And as you can imagine, that creates a problem with adhering to the zoning bylaw required setbacks for solar arrays. That's probably as wide as the entire proposed layout at this point. So that's the only reason we're doing that.
Yeah, but you can still point it out to me somehow by going there and.
I'll bring the
Yeah.
plans tomorrow that
Yeah.
show the lot line
Very
and we can
good.
walk it.
I thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great questions, and it was nice to have them all written down. Very nice. Anyone else?
A lot of my questions have been answered. My name's Tom Menchie. I live at 1 Pine Ridge Way. I have some questions here with some photographs, but a lot of these questions have already been answered.
Where is Pine Ridge Way?
You are right.
It's the townhouse right across.
Oh, it's over, way over, okay. Oh, okay. It's not labeled, I see it, I see it. All right.
No way. That was it.
Okay. All right.
My
Thank you,
first
Sarah.
question is, and it's not on the list, but you talked about that lot line. So if the town doesn't give you permission to combine these lots, you can't build that. Am I correct? I am correct.
The relocation of a lot line by an approval not required plan is really a ministerial function of the planning board. It's not something that a lot of discretion is allowed for.
So my request to the planning board is to not allow that lot line to be changed. And that is not part of my proposal, but my request is not to allow them to do that.
Well, I don't think that the planning board has the
Well-
ability to refuse that.
Okay. Number one, we're around 35 feet from that facility. If you don't know where Pine Ridge Way is, I'd like to invite you to come to our facility. I live in number 1, and I have the most to lose from that facility. I'm not against solar power, I'm not against wind power, but I'm against the view, okay? Number one, if you look at some of the pictures I provided for you, I come from Rochester. And Rochester has a facility in the New Bedford Waterworks. If you've ever seen it, they have a barrier, and there's a picture of the barrier there. That is a natural barrier of land, of a 15-foot barrier with trees. You can't see this facility, okay? Now, I got another picture there, which is your facility down the street here, next to the school. I'm amazed that there's no natural barrier that's hiding that facility. And that's one of the requirements that the town and the state has, is to protect that area with a natural barrier. My question is, why didn't that get done down the street? That's number one. Now I'm concerned with this area here, which is 6 football fields size of an area. When you look at, there's a picture of out of my window I took of the facility, what I look at every single morning. It's absolutely beautiful. And I'm concerned about how they're going to do it. Why does it have to be so large, number one? Because if it's that large, it's going to take a lot to contain it, because we're elevated over that area. And the other thing is that, I mean, the natural beauty that that area provides. In the town of Carver, you know, cranberry bogs, we protect this here. And I don't have a problem with this going in, but it being done correctly. Okay, that's my main concern. Most of the questions that have been answered here have been answered. The site plan walk, to do something like that for tomorrow, I think is difficult for a lot of us. I work. I'd be concerned if we could do something like that on a Saturday. I don't know about everybody else.
Excuse me, but that has nothing to do with the planning board.
Okay.
We will do our own separate site walk, just the planning board members. If you want to arrange something with the applicant and their engineers, you can do that. I mean, that's fine. But,
Okay.
But we do this separately. I
As
just want to.
as far as the 29 buildings that we have there, you know, we contribute $250,000 to this town in tax revenue. And the thing is that All 29 of those units have a view of those cranberry bogs. So I'm really concerned about what's going to happen there and how they're going to do it. Because my examples that I've seen, if you've ever driven down Route 3 in Plymouth and get off at exit 5 and see what the town put on that exit there, those are solar panels. I hope those aren't your solar panels.
No.
It's a disgrace to the town. I drive by that every single day, and I'm shocked at what I see. It's just, these things have to be done correctly. And the town really has to think about what they're doing. The bylaws, I've read the bylaws. It's difficult for me to understand that, but it says that they want us to protect the environment and protect the natural surroundings. So when we put this facility in, I think we have to consider that, and we really got to concentrate and say, how is this going to look from my facility? There's 29 homes there overlooking that facility. Stand on my lot and look. It's absolutely beautiful. But to contain that with a natural barrier, it's going to be difficult because of the size of that facility and the depth of it. I think it should be narrower so that they can be higher. Not a fence. I've seen the fences that are put in. A fence is not a natural barrier. So that is my main concern. The other thing, you talked about revenue. I mean, I don't understand how the town or the bog owners are reimbursed. What does the town get for revenue? You mentioned something about 5 years.
No, so that was the question specific to the rollback taxes associated with removing a parcel or acreage from Chapter 61A.
Okay, when you say rollback, do you pay the last 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay,
So under 61A, a landowner has certain protections from taxes.
okay,
When you remove the property from 61A, you pay the taxes as you would have paid them without.
just property taxes,
That's correct.
not energy tax where that bog is generating energy. Does the town get revenue from
That was
the
the
energy that's,
Sorry.
does the town get tax dollars from the energy that's produced on the property by the bog owner? I don't know.
That would be a tax collector question.
Yeah, I'm curious. That's just a question I had.
If I can respond to that,
Yeah.
as Mr. Farkas said, the type of rollback tax that's being referred to is a look back for 5 years for the difference between what the taxes would have been if the property were assessed at its market value as opposed to the reduced assessment that it goes along with a cranberry bog. Now, the other revenue that has been referenced is the amount of personal property taxes that will flow to the town based on the assessment of the panels themselves over a 20-year period, and that's typically negotiated through a payment in lieu of taxes agreement between the facility owner and the assessors. And that's a process that's been undertaken for all of these facilities, because otherwise it would be impossible to determine what the fair assessment should be for this unique type of property.
Okay. In conclusion, I invite you to our facility. You stand at my number 1. You look out, you'll see what I see every morning. And so does all 29 of these condos look at that. I just ask you to consider the environment and how it looks to us and the people that drive down Tremont Street. It's such a broad area and it's wide open, and you look out and you see the beautiful cranberry bogs. I don't know how that's going to look, but if it looks like what there's down the street, I won't be happy. I mean, that's just a fence with no barrier, no green slatting in the fence, nothing. I just don't understand how that happened, and if that happened to the town, I'm worried what's going to happen here. So that's my frustration, okay? So I've said enough.
This facility is in compliance with the solar facility bylaw of the town.
Where's the natural barrier? There isn't one.
We will take a look at that when
Right.
we do our site walk, and lately, we've been actually going to people's properties and from their properties, looking at the field where they're gonna have the solar panels. So we'll probably have the corners of the field, maybe the centers of the field marked out. Sometimes we ask for height, something to show how high these structures are gonna be, so that when we can view them from the street or from other people's properties, we get an exact idea of what we're doing. But now, in some of these fields, we've actually done screening within the property of the field, and in some, we've required screening on the property of the people that oversee it and don't want to see the field. And so, and they've been compliant to, and they've actually done the screening, or, you know.
Another example is in the Wareham, the new mall that they built in Wareham. You look in the back area, there's solar panels. They did the same thing. They put a natural barrier. I think it's around 8 to 10 feet high of dirt, put trees on top, and it looks, you drive by, you can't see it. In our case, we're elevated. It's going to be more difficult to do that because of the depth of the facility, and that's what I'm concerned about. But I'll go back to my original conversation with the lot line. I don't know who has the power to determine that. I have no idea.
Well, generally on an A&R, it's we take a look at it at the planning board, but on a approval not required plan,
Right.
that's what it means. The planning board doesn't have to approve it.
Okay.
It approves itself after a certain number of days. So we don't really have any say over that, but we do have say over, you know, screening there.
Okay.
And whether it be on the site or on private property, we'll determine that.
I'm going to just change the subject and go back to your last meeting. I work for Toyota, and we train the firefighters in the town. I work for a dealership in Dartmouth. We train them how to handle hybrid fires. They come to us because they have no idea what to do when they have a hybrid fire. I'm hoping that the fire department here, that these facilities are going to the fire departments, training them, because they came to us and asked us, what do I do when I confront a hybrid car? So I have no idea what happens when they have to deal with these Tesla batteries. It's the same thing that's in our Prius cars. So that's just a thought.
Well, usually the fire department CAB is very thorough, and we comply with everything that
Okay.
they ask for.
I don't want to take any more time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, before you step away, as Mr. Mackey said, we've done site visits before that we've visited the abutters property. If you could give me your information, I would like to make sure to visit yours.
name and address right there.
Okay,
On my phone number?
that'd be great.
Bruce,
It's 774.
see that I gave you, I didn't get one.
451.
Which one is that?
His paperwork.
That's my son. What is his name?
Oh, what's it?
See his view.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good comments. Anyone else?
I just like to.
If you could come up and talk, make yourself comfortable in the chair if you like.
My name is Maureen Lindholm, and I live on 6 Cranberry Road. But I
Thank you.
just want to make sure I understand this. So the access to that site is going to come down Cranberry Road, and then it's going to come around and go up behind, up that way. Is that right?
It's gonna, if you're driving.
Down Cranberry.
East on Cranberry.
Towards the forest.
You're gonna take a left turn up, let's see. Here's the access point right here.
Okay.
There's an existing gate, we're not touching anything.
Right.
We're just gonna drive
But you're
up
going to
here.
drive by my house right here, right? And come down here, just, you know, right?
A car would.
Yeah,
Sure.
along with 500 million Cranberry trucks, summer traffic to the
Yeah.
forest. It's gonna be a nightmare down there for us that lives there. The traffic, the construction, the digging up the roads, everything.
We're not touching any of the roads.
No, it's just you have to come by here to get down there. It's a mess there.
Okay.
And the other thing is, so I live right here, and right now, when the trees are all cleared and the leaves are out, I can actually see over to that sand pit too.
Well, if you, yeah, you gave us your name and address, we'll take a look from your property.
And basically, the concern is the traffic on that road. It's really bad.
Well, there's going to be some traffic during construction, but after that, I mean, how long is it going to take to construct something like this?
As Sarah said in her opening introduction, the civil work, I mean, there's existing excavation going on now to get the bog sand out of that bank. And when that's done, the civil site prep is going to be, we'll call it 80% the way there. So the major impact from a construction standpoint is the big D8s rolling through and smoothing things out. I don't see that work lasting more than a couple weeks out there once we start going.
And then once again, once the project is completed, the maintenance then only occurs once or twice a month, is that what it is?
It's a couple folks in a pickup truck once or twice a year.
Once or twice a year for this type of
different.
project.
That's different. Those are the cranberry bog operators. The
Oh,
cranberry.
Borrego trucks going by right now.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I did, saw him the other day, right down on Cranberry Road.
It would have been me driving around in a
It
pickup.
was. God is my witness.
No, I-
That even got this letter in the mail. Yeah.
But to construct this, so the biggest thing is just the excavation, and any excavation out there, just to flatten the
The
site out?
grading,
Yeah.
the grading.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
grading,
there's
yeah.
really no excavation
Just grading,
remaining. It's really just grading to an appropriate level for the array. And it will be a level array, not like the Plymouth array that someone spoke about where no site grading was done, just the array was sort of plopped on top of that and eliminated site grading. This will be, sort of smoothed out. But yeah, as Zach said, some construction work on site to prep, but really after that, that's it.
So there isn't going to be a long gravel removal?
The gravel removal has been ongoing for years there. I mean,
Oh.
you could see it, right?
Okay.
Yeah, that's what has been going on.
Okay, that has nothing
Yeah.
to do with the solar field?
Basically, when
No.
Oh, okay.
they're done, they've exhausted any valuable material there. That's where we're coming in and basically using up the disturbed land that's been
Okay.
disturbed for years. And if anything, after you said, Mr. Mackey, the initial kind of construction work, I'd say there'll be less traffic because there'll be no more big vehicles back there. It'll just be the cranberry operation and the solar operation, which requires 1 to 2 visits a year.
Okay.
Right, and which will be quiet, very quiet and green on that slope there, which is now sand colored.
All right, any other questions? Yes.
I've got, I'm sorry, Marilyn Martin, 24 Pine Ridge Way. I'd like to add a little bit more information to my neighbor Tom. Besides the fact that we all look out, no matter where we live in those 29 units, from some dimension we look out over that bog. We invested a lot of money to have that view, okay? And I'm concerned about the view, but I'm also concerned about the property value because we did invest quite a bit of money in these units. We've also invested a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over the years that the board should be well aware of because of all the iterations of building and issues that have come up with each iteration of building up there, okay? So we're very sensitive. I know. We're very sensitive to this project and what it's going to do to our investment. Not only our emotional investment, but our financial investment. Okay? I know you don't understand that. So please do walk the full loop of Pine Ridge Way to see the different views that we have. Okay? And we'll be talking more from that perspective. Now, my second is more of a question. I'm hearing a lot of solar work going on in the town of Carver, and that's exciting because I'm very supportive of renewable energy as well. And I know that they have to go somewhere, right? And so I do support these types of projects. What kind of specialized inspection capabilities are required for these solar arrays, for these storage facilities? Do we have the capabilities in the town of Carver to adequately inspect these newer technologies that are coming on board? And that's my question.
I don't know, Stephen.
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Through you to the question at hand. As you people know, I've been on this board since you got your permit to build down there. So that being said, I've been here for a long time. I know where you're located. I've been through all the iterations down there. And being one of the electrical inspectors in this town, I've been down there and done inspections. Also, for full disclosure, being a wire inspector in the town of Dennis also, I've made myself available to learn about this technology. Graciously, Zach had allowed me to take a trip out to Wichita December 10th or something, like 8th.
Early December.
We went out there, I took a ride out there for two purposes. There was an application that was in front of this board for this town on battery storage facilities. I made it aware to not only this town, but also to the town of Dennis, that I was going to take a trip out there to look at it. Because this new technology that's coming into our towns is not only, as for an electrician, very intriguing, but also wanting to be able to have a full scope of where it's at and know all the ins and outs. And that I can tell you I don't know. Okay? But as for a wiring under the National Electrical Code, this town is completely prepared to do any of the inspections, whether it's myself or the senior inspector, Steve Peterson. All the available resources that are out there, all the way through the state level into the State Board of Electrical Examiners, are available to this community. So we have that asset for us. So if you're worried about the town having that type of aspect, that's covered. On the other end, we have a great building department, great building staff, exceptional building commissioner that has years and years of experience in the building trades, fully comply with whatever is necessary in any type of structure being built in this town. So we're covered. This town's covered.
Okay, and I understand about the building, et cetera, but I'm more interested in like the solar panels themselves. One other thing that came to mind too was, I know security issues have come up on earlier projects. And one, I think was one of the first projects off of 44 there.
44.
Yeah. There was situations where they were coming in and stealing panels, et cetera. So I don't need an answer tonight, but I'd like to hear about, what's the plan to secure this solar field, and are we going to have floodlights that are going to be pointing up at us? That I know that you would not do that to us, but
Wait a minute.
We may be able to have that question answered for you.
Sure.
Is there a fence proposed to go around the field?
Absolutely. So the security fence that's standard with all solar arrays is defined by the National Electric Code. It's a 7-foot minimum fence around the system. Truthfully, it's mainly meant to protect people from getting hurt and going in there, not necessarily to protect theft of the panels. How do you protect theft? Just like anything in the world, these projects are insured. And if something were to occur, I'm not aware of the incident you guys are referring to, but if something were to occur, we'd simply have to repair it and make an insurance claim if we needed to. So the security fence is more of a safety than a giant barrier to keep people out. But kind of allowing that to segue into the aesthetic, as I said at the outset, we're open to hearing suggestions from you folks or from the board on the type of fence that's used. It could be a chain link fence. In the past, you've seen chain link with the barbed wire. The kind of prison fence is not what we're using anymore, the industry's using anymore. But we could use a chain link fence with slats. We could use a vinyl coated chain link fence, so it wasn't silver, it was black or green or purple, whatever color you guys would like. We could use a vinyl fence that was solid. Sometimes vinyl's not great either. We've used stockade wood fences in the past. So I think as you guys are considering this project and the board's considering the project, that's the type of feedback we'd like to incorporate into the next revision of our drawing as we move toward the closure of this hearing. And we intentionally left a blank slate so that we could do the best and you guys weren't yelling at me about my judgment on what looks best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
On that note, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to add on a personal note, I know many of you know this, but I am a 17-year resident of Carver. I live here, and I can say with confidence on past projects with Borrego and 80 Makepeace, we want to do this correctly. We want to do this well, and we really value your input, and I'm very thankful that you've all come tonight to hear the project presentation and to ask questions, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Doug Shropshire, 13 Pine Ridge Way, and I just have a simple question through the chair for the applicants. Are you adverse to a natural barrier that would buffer? I mean, you've talked about a fence a couple times, but you haven't said anything about what the unit owners have talked about is how would you propose to protect the view that we have right now from the grade and the depth?
Yeah, I think practically speaking, a natural barrier would be something of a berm. The slopes to get to the top of the berm require almost an impossibly wide base for us to work with. And because of our intent not to impact the cranberry bog to the west of the site, it doesn't leave us much room. I think we can move some things around, but I think the Carver Fire Department has some legitimate concerns for access around the site. So if we were to put a berm in, it would effectively limit all access along the north-south edge of the site to be accessed for fire. So that's a challenge. With a gate, you have, with a fence, you have gates. So that's why I keep referring to what type of material we use for the fence.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So that kind of, I think, tells what the issue really is.
Yeah, I mean, I think, when we talk about where we put these sites, I thank you for whoever made the comment, the general support of solar. It's always the challenge of, okay, where? And we want to be careful that, this is in your folks' backyard, but then there's other people, and we're always balancing the appropriate place to find a site. Sometimes when we're out in the middle of the woods, there's lots of people here that are very upset about the fact that we're clearing trees. Other times in a scenario like this, where we have a completely disturbed sand pit, I've got to deal with 3,000 feet of bog that it's very hard to screen. So as Mr. Cirque said, the bylaw, because of that distance, because we have the greater than the 600-foot distance is noted in the bylaw, there's some latitude there. And we've built a solar on a bog similar to this on Ward Street in Carver, which was a upland bog in the middle of a very large bog complex like this. Similarly, you can see it out in the distance as you drive on Ward Street. Again, it's hard for me to say what I think it looks like from 3,000 feet away. It's more important what you guys think, but it's a long way. And these things are very low to the ground. And as we finish our construction, that whole area, the ground underneath and the wall or the hill on the back side of it is going to be stabilized and seeded. And I think you're going to see something that visually may be more appealing than it is today. But we'll see. And certainly for a fence, we're just dealing with a north-south, very narrow site, and dealing with a fire department that's very diligent and understands and has defined exactly what they want. So I think when it comes to screening or safety, they're not going to be able to hear too much.
Right. And I guess I just wanted to lend my voice to support both Marilyn and Tom and what they said. And we had a neighborhood get-together after the notice came out, so I don't want to speak for all the other unit owners, but I think everyone feels similarly about what our view is, and we're looking forward to having the board come out and take a look at it and working with you. Hopefully you can find a solution, because we're all supporters of the solar. I don't think there's anybody that's against the idea of it.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I mean, we're going to have another meeting over this, so if it'll be public, and if there are any other questions later on at the next meeting, everyone's welcome. And of course, this is a work in progress here. We're going to be doing our site walk, and we're going to be looking at at how we're going to screen this and how we can try to protect everybody from viewing or whatever their concerns are. So, are there any more questions from board members?
Mr. Chair, if I could, can I approach you guys just to have you draw where where the proposed solar is going to be?
It's hard to
Mr. Mency, am I saying that right?
Yeah, so we're looking at this image that was just passed out. It's basically a picture from your, I guess it looks like a window. It's hard to see because it's in 2-dimension, right? So it's basically the base of
So
this picture.
it would go from the left to the right of the page, the whole
Yeah,
entire
and
thing.
it's not going to go up the hill either.
Okay, so it's good that it's not going up the hill, because that would be even
Oh,
more
right. That's right.
elevated. it's gonna be at the bottom.
At grade.
Yes.
The bottom, but it's going to go from one side of the page to the other.
Yeah, and you'll basically be looking at the side of the array, so you're not going to see the panels per se, you're going to see the rows, as if you're looking down the rows.
Does this make more sense to you, Kevin? If you're, so this, the neighborhood.
I want to get exactly what his perspective is going to be
Right.
on his picture.
Right.
So that when I go out there for my site walk, I know
Yep.
what I want to look for. So
Yeah, and we
I
can-
like the fact that I'm going to be looking at it, but I'm not going to be looking at it face on. I'm going to be looking at the
Side
the
view.
structure.
Yep.
And then I want to get an idea of, if you're putting in a 7-foot fence anyways, I don't know why there might not be room for a natural berm to go in there that could have some trees on it. So it is a possibility, I think. I know, given the fact that you just said that you're not gonna have a whole lot of room because of the access road that the fire department needs, maybe it's a good idea to start looking for, they're clearly saying that they're looking for some kind of a natural berm.
Yeah, and as I said a number of times, we're interested in hearing your feedback. That was good. And sometimes when you plant the natural trees, you kind of get that Charlie Brown Christmas tree look that might not be effective or.
But with love, they did make that tree.
It's true.
What did you say?
With love.
Can I ask a question about the fences?
Please.
Joy, if you could speak into the microphone and give us your name and address, please, for the record.
I'm Trish Shropshire, 13 Pine Ridge. I was just wondering if it was possible to maybe get some pictures of the different fence options that you were talking about,
Sure.
just so we could see.
I mean, they're chain link, right? Like a normal chain link fence. There's the stockade fence, like I call it, the kind of wooden spears that are all right next to each other that you can't see through, so a solid barrier. And then there's your classic vinyl fence. Like the thought would be you don't want a fence you can look through, like a chain link fence. That's why I'd rather not use that. You want a solid barrier that would screen if these things are 10 feet tall. If we put in a 10-foot fence, it would help. But because your grade is a little bit higher, I don't want to try to deceive everyone and say I can hide it behind a 10-foot fence. You're looking at an angle. So.
But they even come in different colors, so it wouldn't be like silver, or there could be green or something that could be a little bit more hidden. I don't know.
Almost any color you could ask for.
I don't know, maybe that would make a difference.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I'm seeing that it's getting late. Oh, okay, one more.
I'm Shirley Pye. I'm 25 Pine Ridge. If you made it less wide, would you have room for a natural?
We could try. We have some challenges with the way the site's built already, with basically a hill on one side and a hill and potentially a new berm on the other. Makes it pretty challenged, but it's something we can look into.
Mr. Chair, and then of course, I was just thinking, would there be room inside the fence to the first structure if, let's say, a 6-foot tree went at a distance that was fair, that would cover just the structure, maybe not necessarily through all the rows?
Yeah.
So for instance, how far would the rows be where you would just see the mechanical structure?
The rows are spaced probably about 10 feet, 15 feet apart, I'd say. So you can theoretically.
So you see where I'm going with that,
Yeah.
maybe? Inside the fence?
Yeah, I think you can do. I mean, you can do anything. It's just striking the right balance between what's feasible for us and what accomplishes the goals of the town and the neighbors. So it's something we can definitely look at. I think functionally, if we all get out there and kick around the dirt a little bit, I think it's a lot easier to be creative on site than it is right now. But I'm happy to listen to all comments.
Yeah, I think we have to go out there for a site visit, really, to see what this is like.
Absolutely.
It's hard to, I mean, I couldn't even find Pine Ridge Road there, so, so I need to get out there. But I don't recognize, I remember seeing you people before, but now I do. But,
It's all coming back to you.
I know you've been here a couple of times before, under much different circumstances. So, all right. Any other questions before we wrap this up for tonight? We'll, if there isn't any, entertain a motion
So I have
to
I have a
continue.
question
Okay, yep.
through you to the applicant and also to the town planner. I understand that you haven't had the tech review or any of that. What is the date that you guys are looking to continue to and to be able to do the tech review?
January 22nd.
Thank you. Make a motion to continue the public hearing to January 22nd at 7 PM.
I'll second that.
I have motion and a second, further discussion. I just wanted to ask Stephen, do you have anything to add to this, or, about time constraints or anything else like that?
I wouldn't dream of it, Mr. Chairman. I think you're doing a great job wrapping this up. As Sarah mentioned, frankly, given the holidays, Town Hall was closed for 2 additional days after those holidays, and some of the professional staff was traveling and had vacation time planned, so we just simply didn't have time to get the TRC done before this meeting. We will have it scheduled and prepared with memos before our next meeting on the 22nd.
And just to follow up on that, we have already received a letter from Fuss and O'Neill, so we're in good shape to get plans turned back around with their input and staff input directly after the TRC. So I feel confident that we can do that for the next meeting.
And just to reiterate also, this applicant will be appearing before the Concom tomorrow, so all of the regulatory department heads or authorities that have normally sat on the TRC have already vetted this. We just haven't convened as a group to discuss.
Right, okay, thank you. I'm glad I asked you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that's unanimous. So let's talk about, we do have people missing here tonight. How long is it going to take you, say, to mark out the corners of the field, maybe put some midpoints?
It's actually
in?
pretty easy to do because it's a disturbed site, unlike a treat site.
Yeah.
I think we could easily walk the perimeter of the site.
Okay.
Yeah, we may not actually, unless you really want us to, since the proposed work basically encompasses the entire open area.
Yeah.
Already the footprint is there for us to see right today. So we could go
Okay.
as early as tomorrow, really,
All right.
depending on schedule.
All right. Do we want to discuss a site visit right now, or do you want to speak with the other?
Mr. Chairman, my sense is that, why is this so booming? My sense is that the same constraints we had for the last project exist for this as well. So I'll be glad to receive some dates from Mrs. Bogart.
Okay.
Will, I'm sure you still have the same conflicts as well.
Yeah.
Sarah is constantly in contact
Anytime.
with our office, so
I'd also just like to offer, if anyone's around tomorrow at 10 a.m., we will be walking the site with conservation. So if you'd like to join, if it's the only time you can go, we're going to be out there anyway. So anyone is welcome.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll schedule another day.
Okay.
Or
I won't
other
be able to
days.
make it. I have something going tomorrow, but thank you for mentioning that anyway. And if you can work with Stephen.
Yeah.
And we'll get a date to go out there.
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. And I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. You had excellent questions. And hopefully we'll be able to, we'll look at all these things for you.
Of course. You got it. Nice to see you guys.
I'm retired. I do nothing. I did it all.
Thank you very much for coming.
You go to Pacific Beach?
We still have to continue our meeting, so if everybody could move out and maybe go downstairs, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
We go there and we had an idea of camping on the bay.
So Borrego's got an office in San Diego, and we go out there for a week every year.
Do you have a card?
Do a thing, yeah.
My sister-in-law does this. She works for a big company in upstate New York and they have an office down the coast. But anyway,
site plan?
Okay. All right, on other business, we have planning board member notes. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say this evening?
I'm all set for tonight, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Jen? I'm good.
I'm good.
Kevin's good. Okay, planning director notes.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have a request from our hardworking staff to please, as best as possible, keep your packets in the order that you received them. We will be revisiting all of these subjects again in about 2 weeks' time. It would save the staff an enormous amount of time trying to recreate those packets. If there's anything that you would like to take home, please do let me know, and I'll be very glad to make sure that I collect it again from you before our next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Similarly, Mr. Chair, folks,
But if you go out in the hallway, please, thank you very much. We're trying to
you.
continue, and it makes it hard for the people viewing this at home.
Similarly, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the planning board members to please review the A&R plans that are over here on the table next to me. Many of you did sign, but some of you didn't sign all, and I can't necessarily ascertain whose signature is whose.
Was this from the last meeting?
This is from our last meeting, so
Okay.
there's no consequence. They do have 6 months to file these, but I just want to make sure that I've collected all of the signatures on all of the A&R plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it?
That'll do
it. We have the minutes of December 11th.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to table these where I haven't read them yet, and they're pretty lengthy. But that's just my motion to continue the,
I'll agree. We don't have to vote on that, do we?
No, sir.
We'll just pass that on when we have our other board members with us. So our next meeting date is going to be January 22nd, and I imagine it's going to be a busy night.
make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
A motion and a second. Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And thank you, and good night, everyone.
Thank you.